Hello, my name is Miranda Reeds, and this is my book hoarding life. I moved all my books for part of a video, which is already up, and I need to move them all back, but it took me a long time to move them all here. And if I'm being 100% honest, part of me doesn't want to move them all back yet, because it's just, it took me, I think like roughly 7 hours to move them all here. And I just know that putting them back is going to be so much more effort than that, because I have to organize it. So today I want to talk about books by self-published or indie authors, and specifically children's books, middle grade books. Now, one thing I love about being a reviewer is being able to bring attention for books that might not be necessarily on everyone's radar. Being able to promote those books and hopefully bring them to a broader audience. If you are a writer, or if you're interested in writing and marketing to the indie world, there are a couple of books sent to me by Carol Roman. One of hers is Marketing the Indie World, and the other one was Navigating the Indie World. And they're great like starter books for like trying to figure out what is it like to try and publish on your own. You are responsible for the editing, the beta reading, the marketing, the promotions. There's just so much that you have to do. So when I can, I try and find books that I'm interested in and that I'd like to promote. As a full disclosure, all of the books mentioned today were sent to me as a free copy in exchange for an honest review on Goodreads. And then anything else, so if you see the review on my blog, on Amazon, on here, it's because it's something that I want to do and I want to promote their books. So I think what we'll do is we'll start off with the youngest and then kind of keep going upwards in age. There's a series of books by Erica Graham, and these are picture books designed to help children with sounds. And what I think is really interesting, and I thought really brought this book to life for me, is that the author is actually works as a speech pathologist. What she noted was when she was working with children often get frustrated when they're told to say the same thing over and over as a form of therapy to try and get them to enunciate and to speak the words clearly. And she decided to write a series of books illustrated by herself about those commonplace issues she sees with children. There is Puppy's Bubble, Catch That Chinchilla, and Shh, Don't Scare the Mushrooms. So Puppy's Bubble is supposed to help with early sounds, and what it does is it takes you through a story where the words in the story really emphasize those early learning sounds. Catch That Chinchilla works with the CH sound, and it has a story where the chinchilla ends up escaping and it goes to this place, this place, this place. The children chase after it, and there's a lot of ch words in there. And then finally there's Shh, Don't Scare the Mushrooms, which has a girl and her father, and they are going out to pick mushrooms, and she has a lot of like funny questions to ask her dad, and her dad just goes, shh, you don't want to scare the mushrooms, which like I think everyone pretty much knows he just wants to have a quiet walk. This one was my favorite because the author went, I think, a little bit riskier with her illustrations in this one, and she started imagining the mushrooms doing all the little things that the girl in the book was asking her dad about, which ended up bringing a different dimension to the book, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of fun, I really enjoyed that addition to the book. The next book, which would probably be around the same age group as these, maybe a little bit older, is Relay. A father loses his keys, and then his two sons, one of them is a little bit older, and he talks about like where the keys went, and it's all sorts of, like if you can see from the back, there's all sorts of construction trucks that end up like ferreting away the keys, and it becomes like this huge adventure. It has kind of like the feel of like when a kid tells you a story and every single sentence ends with and. So it ended up being a lot of fun. For me as a reader, I really enjoyed this book. All of these illustrations were actually done by the author, which I think adds a really fun dimension to the book, and I was really impressed by how well the construction trucks were drawn. Everything seemed very well to perspective, and it was an extremely engaging book for me. So this one is an absolute favorite of mine. So my husband knows the illustrator, they were longtime friends, and then the illustrator found out that I was on Goodreads and my account is one of the bigger accounts. And he said I could have a book, but he had no expectation of a review. I love this book. I love this book. It's so cute. So this is the Squeezor, and he is a monster who loves extra long double hugs because his arms are so long he could wrap it around twice. However, the other monsters in the town are scared of him, and they don't want to hang out and they don't want to spend time with him. He's devastated. He doesn't know what to do, and he ends up just kind of backing off and then trying to be helpful when he can, which ends up being like a very positive effect on how the other monsters treat him. So I thought this one was really, really well done. I love the illustration. There's so many like little quirks and details, which really makes a picture book for me. The text itself felt very fresh. It doesn't feel like a story that I've heard many a time. So overall, I really like this one. I ended up convincing my mom to buy a copy of this one for all of my little cousins because I love it. It's such a great little Halloween book. So then we have Is It a Pickle Yet? And this one was such a little pleasant surprise for me. A girl and her grandmother are gardening, and the girl finds out that they could make pickles, and it's kind of like the whole adventure in gardening and how they're able to make a pickle. There's a little gopher here who starts off as an enemy and ends up progressing closer and closer to friendship. And I thought this book was really adorable. I love the idea of incorporating greenery and growing things into a book. I also really like how this becomes a bonding event for the child and her grandmother. I think what this one was missing was a pickle recipe, because what a cute way to end it with like an official pickle recipe. You could probably piece it together based off of like the context clues. If you do read this one, like I think your child would be highly motivated into making some pickles, so definitely have a recipe on hand. It's a great way to kind of introduce to kids like where food comes from. And I'm really, really hoping that the author will continue along this path, because the illustrations on this one are like absolutely stunning. Like I don't want to give too much away, but isn't this just the cutest with like the little gopher and then the little, I think it is really, really cute. And this one was an absolute win for me. So this one was sent to me by Judy, and there is an hola, let's learn Spanish, and then bonjour, let's learn French. And these two books are designed to help kids get an introduction to a new language when they might not have heard of it at all before. She mentions in her description of the book that this is a great resource for homeschool learning. So in this book, you start off with Pete the pilot. So he flies you to either France or Mexico. And then from there, you start to learn some conversational language. You go through a little adventure with characters. So in France, you get to meet this little snail guy. And then in Mexico, you meet a little jumping bean. I really like that at the end, there is a activity section where like the kids can do activity themed based off of the country. And there's a few other stuff for them to do. Like there might be painting, there might be mask making. Overall, I think this was like a great resource, and ended up making learning the language rather fun, in my opinion. All right, so now we're gonna be hitting a little bit older age for these books. And the first one we have is Doll Rice, and I did not expect to enjoy this one as much as I did. So in this book, we follow Vincent, and his family comes from India. He's a first generation in American school. And then he talks a little bit about how the two cultures collide and the different unique situations he runs into. So I really like this book and its illustration. It's very short, and I do wish it was longer because there's a lot of ideas in here that I think would have been like really great to adapt to a longer book. But that being said, this is like a really nice compact look at what it's like to go to a new country. Overall, I think this one was really cute. I think the illustrations in it really uplifts the book and brings about a different dimension, which really enhanced my enjoyment of the book. All right, so now we're starting to get up to that middle grade theme. And one of the ones that I absolutely loved reviewing was Monty and the Monster. I thought this one was so much fun, and it was such a different book. So in this book, Monty, his dad, and his older brother moved to a new town again, and Monty and his dog, Watson, end up getting the attic room of this huge old house. And at first, Monty has a lot of trouble fitting in. His mother passed away. His dad is always working. Kyle, his big brother, thinks he's helping, but really he's kind of being more of a bully to poor Monty. So poor Monty has to try and find his way. And he finds it through a trapdoor in his house, which leads to a secret laboratory, in which case he creates the monster. And this book ended up being really cute. There's a lot of times where I thought I knew where it was going, because I've read somewhat similar books to this, and it would take me in a completely different direction, and I loved that. That really made the book stand out to me. Plus, the characters felt very real. And I've went through a lot of self-published, a lot of indie books where the characters end up feeling kind of flat and a little 2D. This one here, I feel like I could have a conversation with just about anyone in this book, and I would know how they would respond because their personalities are just that strong. So I definitely like this one. I think this one works really, really well. Highly recommended. Okay, so then we have Ethan and the Key, and this one is by Dennis Canfield. We have 12-year-old Ethan. He steps in a green puddle. He's transported to a different world, kind of like a medieval dragon-y world. And his life just goes from like totally normal to absolutely wild. And I thought this one was like really, really well done. I thought the plot was unique. One of my favorite parts is just the sheer randomness of the magic, and it really like refreshed the genre for me. So I think this one is a lot of fun. A bit of a random detail, but I really like how Ethan's family is very strong in this book, because there's so many like middle grade books where the kid is missing a family member, or they have to go through this huge tragedy in order to have an adventure. And the fact that he doesn't do that, he just has the adventure anyway, really made this book stand out to me. All right, so then we have The Mystery of the Rainbow Flowers. This one kind of gave me Chronicles of Narnia vibes, but with not so much overt religious intentions. So in this one, we have a brother and sister, Lucy and Matthew, and they're around like 12-ish and younger. And they spend the day gardening for their parents, and then they have to do a little bit more work. They end up finding a very weird flower, and they get sucked into this mystery world. And for me, that worked really well. I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't some overarching big bad, that there wasn't a huge evil thing that they had to fight. But on the other hand, I think it worked really well for this story. It was a lot of fun to kind of use the imagination and be like, okay, so you're in this world and everything is bigger than you. How do you survive? And there's definitely like a little bit of like magic-y stuff in there, which ended up making the book really pop. All right, so then we have The Troublemakers. And I went into this one pretty much blind. So this follows three students, Byron, Carlos, and Tina. And there's 3 short stories in this book, and each one follows a different character. It is interesting to see how the 3 of them interacted differently based off of which perspective we got. So the first one, Carlos, is very much a moneymaker. He wants to get as much dough as quickly as possible, and he ends up scamming some of his other middle grade classmates, which ends up getting him in trouble. In Tina's perspective, there is a new trampoline that one of the rich kids has, and she has to try and get secure passes to the trampoline for her and her other 2 friends. And then the third one is Byron. He's kind of like the little rich kid of the group, and he thinks that he's sucked into a kind of like a groundhog situation, and he has to figure out how to break free of it. All in all, I really liked the way these 3 stories interacted. I thought they were a lot of fun to read, and the characters, I really liked them. The 3 of them are a little bit troublemakers, so they're always getting into mischief, which ends up being a lot of fun for me as a reader to find out what they get themselves into. But that being said, I did really enjoy my time within these pages. And then, hello bug, what you doing? And then we also have Fast Backward, which ended up being like a little bit of a gem. I don't typically read kind of like war books or books that happen in war times, but this one ended up working quite well. Bobby Hastings witnesses a crime and he sees a girl just kind of appear, and then the 2 of them start to interact and he finds out that she is and by around here I mean like the 1940s. This one ended up being like quite a bit of a surprise to me for how much I enjoyed it. I like the way the 2 main characters interacted with each other. You're the worst assistant ever. Yes, you are. Mwah. So this one ended up being a lot of fun to read. Thank you so much for watching. This is a fun foray into children's to middle grade books by self-published authors. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Have a great day.